The email landed in my inbox at 8:43 a.m. on a Wednesday morning like a digital punch to the gut. Your position has been eliminated effective immediately. Please clear your workspace by the end of business today. No signature, no explanation, just cold corporate efficiency from Victoria Nash, the Chief Operating Officer at TechWave Industries. I read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. My name is Cody Turner. I'm 45 years old, and for the past 13 years, I have been the backbone of TechWave's entire IT infrastructure. When I started here, their systems were held together with digital duct tape and prayers. Now Victoria was throwing me away like yesterday's coffee. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just 2 weeks ago, she had personally congratulated me on my outstanding annual review and approved my merit increase. Apparently, my contributions went from exceptional to eliminated in 14 days. I stared at my computer screen, the fluorescent lights humming overhead like they had during countless late nights when servers crashed and systems failed. This was the same desk where I had worked through weekends, holidays, and family dinners to keep TechWave running smoothly. I had missed my son Kyle's baseball games and my daughter Emma's school plays because the network needed me. I had built my entire professional identity around being indispensable. The cruel joke was that I actually was indispensable. Victoria just didn't know it yet. As head of IT infrastructure, I held the keys to every system that kept this company breathing. Not because I was power-hungry, but because I was the only person who understood the complex architecture I had spent over a decade building. Every firewall, every backup protocol, every security measure had my fingerprints all over it. Victoria Nash was about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between dispensable and irreplaceable. When I first arrived at TechWave Industries 13 years ago, the company was hemorrhaging money due to constant system failures and security breaches. Their previous IT team consisted of 3 guys who treated cybersecurity like an optional upgrade. When hackers breached their client database and leaked confidential information about military contracts, TechWave nearly went bankrupt. That's when they hired me from a successful consulting firm in Phoenix, offering double my salary and complete control over their technology infrastructure. Victoria Nash, who was VP of Operations then, personally recruited me with promises of partnership and long-term growth. "You'll be the cornerstone of our digital transformation," she had said with a firm handshake and confident smile. I believed every word she told me. More importantly, I trusted her vision for the company. For the first 9 years, everything Victoria promised came true. I rebuilt their network from the ground up, implemented military-grade security, and created redundant systems that could survive natural disasters. While other companies in Austin were getting hacked weekly, TechWave remained untouchable. Victoria and I worked closely during those early years. She understood technology enough to give me the resources I needed, and I respected her business instincts. When she got promoted to COO 3 years ago, I was genuinely happy for her success. I thought we were building something lasting together, a partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. The first warning sign appeared 8 months ago when Victoria hired Derek Phillips as IT process manager without consulting me. Derek was 26 years old, fresh from business school with a shiny MBA and 0 practical technical experience. His job was to streamline operations and improve cost efficiency, corporate speak for finding ways to cut expenses. Veteran employees with high salaries are always the first targets in these efficiency drives. Derek started asking detailed questions about our systems, requesting documentation for everything. I provided the standard operating procedures we gave to junior staff, but I kept the critical details to myself. Something about his attitude bothered me. He talked about our infrastructure like it was just another budget line item to be optimized and reduced. 3 months ago, I overheard Derek talking to Victoria about redundancy in the IT department. He suggested that many of my responsibilities could be handled by junior technicians at a fraction of the cost. Victoria asked if he was confident about maintaining security without me. Derek assured her that modern IT management was mostly automated anyway, just another software package you could buy and install. That conversation should have been my wake-up call. I should have started looking for another job immediately. Instead, I assumed that Victoria would remember everything I had done for TechWave. I assumed that 13 years of loyalty and excellence would count for something in the corporate calculation. I thought our professional relationship meant something beyond quarterly budget reports. I was completely wrong about everything. The termination email arrived while I was reviewing server logs from the previous night, a routine task I had performed thousands of times, checking for any anomalies that might indicate security threats. The subject line read, "Position elimination, immediate." No, dear Cody, no thank you for your service, just brutal corporate efficiency at its most heartless. I immediately called Victoria's office, hoping there had been some kind of mistake. Her assistant, Patricia Williams, answered with forced cheerfulness that couldn't hide the awkwardness in her voice. Victoria Nash's office. This is Patricia speaking. Patricia, this is Cody Turner. I need to speak with Victoria about the email I just received. A long pause filled the line before she responded. I'm sorry, Cody, but Mrs. Nash is in executive meetings all day. She asked me to tell you that Human Resources will contact you about the transition process. Transition process? My replacement orientation begins Monday. Derek Phillips will be assuming your responsibilities immediately. The line went dead, leaving me holding the phone and staring at my computer screen in disbelief. Derek Phillips, the business school graduate who thought cybersecurity was just another software subscription, was inheriting 13 years of my work. Victoria was handing over the keys to someone who probably couldn't configure a basic router without calling technical support. I walked to the break room to get coffee, hoping the familiar routine would help me process what was happening to my career. Instead, I found Derek standing by the coffee machine, talking quietly with two junior technicians I had personally trained over the past few years. They stopped talking abruptly when they saw me approach. Morning, Cody, Derek said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How are things going today? Just fantastic, I replied, forcing my own fake smile. Congratulations on your promotion, by the way. He looked genuinely surprised by my knowledge of the situation. How did you find out already? The technicians exchanged uncomfortable glances and quickly left the break room, obviously wanting to avoid being part of this conversation. Derek hadn't expected me to learn about his promotion so quickly. He probably thought Victoria would break the news to me personally, maybe with some explanation about budget cuts or company restructuring. He didn't realize that Victoria had chosen the coward's way out, terminating me via email like I was some kind of spam message. Derek, I said, pouring coffee into my favorite mug. Have you ever heard the phrase single point of failure? He nodded confidently. Sure, it's when a system depends too heavily on one component. Exactly. And what happens when that component fails? He paused, clearly unsure where this conversation was heading. The whole system goes down, I guess. I smiled and walked back to my office without another word. Derek Phillips was about to discover that IT infrastructure wasn't like managing a budget spreadsheet. He was about to learn that when you fire the person who built your digital foundation, you better make sure you can actually operate without them. I had been loyal to TechWave Industries for 13 years. I had protected their data, secured their networks, and kept their business running through countless crises and emergencies. Victoria Nash had repaid that loyalty by discarding me like obsolete equipment. Now it was time to show them exactly how essential my role really was. I spent the rest of Wednesday morning cleaning out my desk while mentally planning my next move. The security cameras were recording everything, so I made sure to appear completely professional and compliant. I packed my personal items, printed out documents I would need for my exit interview, and prepared to leave quietly. But I had one final task to complete before walking away. At 11:15 a.m., I logged into the primary server using my administrative credentials. Every system at TechWave ran through this central hub: email servers, client databases, financial records, backup systems, everything that kept the company operational. I navigated to the system configuration panel and accessed the automated maintenance protocols I had programmed years earlier. Every network administrator builds fail-safes into their systems. These are emergency procedures designed to protect data during catastrophic failures or security breaches. If hackers tried to penetrate our network, certain systems would automatically shut down to prevent data theft. If a natural disaster damaged our primary servers, backup protocols would activate to preserve critical files. I had programmed one additional fail-safe that I had never documented anywhere official. If someone attempted to access system configuration without proper authentication protocols that only I knew, the entire network would initiate a controlled shutdown. Not a crash, Not data deletion, just a systematic pause that would require administrative reset to restore functionality. The beautiful thing about this particular failsafe was that it looked completely legitimate. The system would display standard maintenance messages that wouldn't raise any suspicions. Users would assume routine updates were being performed. Nobody would suspect sabotage because the shutdown process followed proper technical procedures. I initiated the sequence with a 96-hour delay, giving myself plenty of time to be gone before anyone realized what had happened. At noon, I walked to Human Resources to meet with Karen Rodriguez, the director who handled employee terminations. Karen was professional but sympathetic, explaining my severance package and discussing health insurance continuation options. She asked if I had any questions about the transition process. When does Derek officially take over my responsibilities? I asked casually. Monday morning. He's been reviewing your documentation all week to prepare for the transition. I almost laughed out loud. Derek had been reviewing the basic documentation I provided to all junior staff members. He had no access to the specialized knowledge required to actually manage our security infrastructure. Victoria and Derek apparently believed that IT management was like changing oil in a car. Any qualified technician could handle it with the right manual. Will Derek have administrative access to all systems? I inquired. That's being arranged, Karen replied. Mr. Phillips requested a complete transfer of your credentials by Friday afternoon. Perfect timing. By Friday afternoon, Derek would have my old passwords, but the systems would be locked in maintenance mode. He would spend the weekend trying to figure out what went wrong, probably assuming I had made some kind of mistake before leaving. I signed all the termination paperwork and handed Karen my company laptop, access badge, and parking pass. Everything had to appear normal and professional. I shook her hand, thanked her for her professionalism, and walked out of TechWave Industries for what I assumed would be the last time. That afternoon, I drove home to my house in Cedar Park and told my wife Michelle what had happened. She was absolutely furious, not just about the firing, but about the disrespectful way Victoria had handled everything. Michelle worked as an operations manager for a logistics company, so she understood the value of institutional knowledge. She knew that replacing experienced employees was never as simple as executives pretended it would be. "What are you going to do now?" she asked, still angry on my behalf. "Wait," I said calmly, "and see if they realize their mistake." I spent Thursday and Friday updating my resume and reaching out to former colleagues at other companies. Several firms in Austin were hiring senior IT professionals, and the job market was strong. My reputation in the industry was solid, so I would be fine professionally. But I wanted more than just a new job. I wanted Victoria Nash and Derek Phillips to understand the consequences of their decision. Saturday morning at exactly 10:00 a.m., while I was sitting in my home office reviewing job postings online, my phone rang. The caller ID showed TechWave's main number. "Cody, this is Derek Phillips. We're having some serious issues with the network. Can you walk me through the reset procedures?" I had been expecting this call, but I was surprised it came so quickly on a weekend. Derek's voice carried obvious panic that he was trying to hide behind forced professional courtesy. "What kind of issues are you experiencing?" I asked calmly. "The system initiated some kind of automatic maintenance mode yesterday afternoon. All our internal applications are showing temporary service unavailable messages. I tried using the administrative passwords you documented, but nothing is working at all." "That sounds like the emergency failsafe protocol," I replied. "It activates when the system detects potential security threats or unauthorized access attempts. How do I turn it off and get everything back online?" Derek asked desperately. I paused, letting the silence stretch long enough to make him extremely uncomfortable. "The reset procedure isn't documented anywhere. It requires manual configuration of the primary server. Can you walk me through it over the phone right now?" Derek pleaded. "Derek, I don't work for TechWave Industries anymore." Victoria Nash made that crystal clear on Wednesday morning. Another long pause filled the line. I could hear voices in the background, people talking rapidly with obvious stress and frustration. "Cody, I know this situation is awkward, but we really need your help right now. This is affecting all our clients and major contracts." "I understand your problem," I replied sympathetically. "Have you tried calling the software vendor for technical support? They said this looks like a custom configuration that they can't troubleshoot remotely without direct access." "Of course they did. Every piece of our security infrastructure had been customized specifically for TechWave's unique needs. The standard documentation would be completely useless for resolving this particular issue. I'm sorry, Derek, but I can't provide technical support for systems I no longer have authorized access to. That would violate company security policies that I helped write. What if we brought you back as a consultant temporarily just to fix this immediate problem? Now we were getting somewhere interesting. I would need to speak directly with Victoria about the terms of any consulting arrangement, I told him. She's in emergency meetings with the executive team right now. Let me get back to you as soon as possible. The line went dead, leaving me smiling for the first time since Wednesday morning. I checked the time, 10:23 a.m. on Saturday. The TechWave network had been down for approximately 18 hours during what should have been routine weekend operations. Their clients couldn't access account information or process transactions. Their sales team couldn't generate new orders or update existing contracts. Their financial systems were completely inaccessible to both internal staff and external auditors. Every hour of downtime was costing them money and seriously damaging their reputation with high-value clients. In the IT industry, reliability is absolutely everything. If clients can't trust you to keep your own systems running smoothly, why would they trust you to manage their critical data and processes? My phone rang again 45 minutes later. This time the caller ID showed Victoria Nash's direct line. Cody, we need to talk immediately. Her voice was completely different now. Gone was the cold corporate efficiency from Wednesday's termination email. She sounded stressed, maybe even desperate for my help. Hello, Victoria. I heard you're having some technical difficulties with your systems. Our entire network has been down since yesterday afternoon. Derek says you're the only person who can fix it and get us back online. That's quite unfortunate, I replied calmly. When exactly did this start happening? About 18 hours ago. The system just shut itself down without any warning to anyone. I knew exactly when it started, down to the precise minute, because I had programmed the timing myself. But Victoria didn't need to know that important detail. These things happen with complex systems, I said matter-of-factly. Have you considered calling in an outside IT consulting firm to help resolve the issue? Cody, stop playing games with me. What will it take to get you back here to fix this problem? I'm not playing games, Victoria. You terminated my employment on Wednesday morning. I'm simply no longer responsible for your technology problems or system maintenance. The silence stretched for nearly a full minute before she spoke again, and I could hear the desperation growing in her voice. Name your price. Whatever you want. I don't work hourly anymore, I informed Victoria. I work exclusively on retainer contracts now. What does that mean exactly? It means you pay me a monthly fee for ongoing consulting services. If you need me to solve a crisis, I'm available immediately. If your systems run smoothly, you still pay the full retainer fee. I could hear Victoria breathing heavily on the other end of the line, and voices were getting louder and more agitated in the background. Someone was frantically talking about calling clients to explain the service outage and apologize for the inconvenience. How much would this retainer cost? She asked reluctantly. $75,000 per month with a 6-month minimum contract, plus a one-time emergency service fee of $40,000 to resolve your current crisis immediately. That's absolutely ridiculous, Cody. You were making $9,500 per month as a full-time employee here. That was before you decided my role was no longer essential to company operations. Market rates for emergency cybersecurity consulting are considerably higher than staff salaries, especially for weekend crisis situations. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and I knew she was doing the math in her head. $450,000 for 6 months of consulting plus $40,000 for immediate crisis resolution. It was almost 4 times what they had been paying me annually as their full-time employee. I need to discuss this with the executive team before making any decisions, she said finally. Of course, that's completely understandable. But Victoria, you should know that every hour your network stays down is costing you credibility with your most important clients. Defense contractors really don't like service interruptions when they're dealing with classified government information. That was the crucial point that would force their decision. TechWave had built their entire reputation on reliability and uncompromising security standards. A prolonged network outage wouldn't just cost them money in the short term, It would permanently damage their relationships with high-value government clients who demanded perfect uptime and bulletproof security. How long will it take you to fix this if we agree to your consulting terms? Victoria asked. Assuming I can get immediate physical access to the server room, probably about 90 minutes maximum. 90 minutes? Derek has been working on this problem for almost 20 hours straight. Derek doesn't have the specialized knowledge required for this particular type of system issue, but I'm sure he's doing his absolute best under difficult circumstances. Victoria ended the call without saying goodbye, leaving me to wait for their decision. I spent the next 2 hours preparing my official consulting contract and thinking about how I wanted to structure this new relationship with TechWave. They had treated me like a disposable employee who could be easily replaced. Now they would pay premium rates for my expertise and specialized knowledge. My phone rang at 2:45 p.m. "We accept your terms," Victoria said, her voice flat and defeated. "How quickly can you get here to fix this?" "I can be there within 30 minutes, but I'll need a signed contract and a certified check for the emergency service fee before I start any work." "Fine." Karen Rodriguez is preparing all the paperwork right now. When I arrived at TechWave Industries, the parking lot was much fuller than usual for a Saturday afternoon. Through the office windows, I could see people at their desks looking frustrated and anxious about the ongoing crisis. The reception area, normally quiet on weekends, buzzed with nervous energy and worried conversations. Karen met me in the lobby with a detailed consulting contract and a certified check for $40,000. I reviewed the paperwork very carefully, signed everything, and deposited the check using my phone's mobile banking app. The money cleared immediately into my account. "Derek is waiting for you in the server room," Karen said, escorting me through the building. I found Derek standing in front of the primary server rack, staring at diagnostic screens with obvious confusion and growing panic. When he saw me enter, his expression mixed profound relief with deep embarrassment about the situation. "Thank God you're here," he said desperately. "I've been trying everything I can think of, but absolutely nothing works." "Sometimes these systems develop very complex problems," I said calmly, sitting down at the administrative console. "Let me see what I can do to help." I logged in using credentials that I had never shared with anyone during my 13 years at the company. I navigated to the system configuration panel and disabled the maintenance protocol with just a few keystrokes. Within 3 minutes, all systems came back online perfectly. Email servers resumed normal operation, databases became accessible again, and client portals restored full functionality. The entire network hummed back to life as if nothing had ever happened. "How did you do that so quickly?" Derek asked, staring at me with a mixture of awe and complete bewilderment. 13 years of experience," I said simply, standing up and closing my laptop. 13 years of building, maintaining, and understanding every component of this infrastructure. I walked toward the exit, but Derek followed me desperately. "Wait, can you show me how to do that reset procedure? What if this happens again?" "That's what the 6-month consulting retainer is for," I replied. "If you have any technical issues, just call me directly." 6 months later, when my consulting retainer with TechWave expired, I chose not to renew the agreement. By then, I had used the substantial income to establish my own cybersecurity firm, Turner Digital Defense, with offices in downtown Austin and contracts with 4 major corporations who had grown tired of dealing with larger, less responsive consulting companies that didn't understand their specific needs. Victoria Nash called me personally to negotiate renewal of our consulting agreement, and her tone was completely different from our previous conversations. "Cody, we really need you to continue providing technical support for our systems. Derek has learned quite a bit, but he still needs guidance on complex issues that come up regularly. I appreciate the offer, Victoria, but I'm focused entirely on growing my own business now. I have several new clients who require my complete attention and expertise. We can significantly increase the retainer fee if that would change your mind. What would it take to keep you available for our technical needs?" "It's not about money anymore," I told her honestly. "I've decided to work exclusively with clients who value long-term partnerships over short-term cost savings and efficiency measures." There was a long pause before Victoria spoke again, and I could hear the regret in her voice. "You're still angry about how we handled your termination, aren't you?" "I'm not angry at all, Victoria. Actually, I'm grateful. Being fired was the best thing that ever happened to my career. That was completely true. Victoria's decision to terminate my employment had forced me to take a professional risk I might never have taken otherwise. Instead of remaining a comfortable but underpaid employee, I had become an independent entrepreneur with complete control over my professional destiny and financial future. What about our ongoing security needs? Victoria asked desperately. You know our systems better than anyone else in the industry. I recommend you hire a qualified cybersecurity consulting firm. There are several excellent ones right here in Austin, but none of them know our specific configuration and custom setup. That's absolutely true. I agreed. The knowledge transfer will probably take considerable time, and it will definitely be expensive, but I'm confident you'll figure everything out eventually. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear frustration in her breathing. This feels like revenge, Cody. No, Victoria. Revenge would be unprofessional and beneath me. This is just business, the same way your termination decision was just business. 2 weeks after I declined to renew my consulting contract with TechWave, I received an interesting call from Patricia Williams, Victoria's former executive assistant. She had found a new position elsewhere and wanted to share some information about what had happened after my departure. Victoria was fired last month. Patricia told me confidentially. The board blamed her for the network crisis and all those expensive consulting fees. They said she showed extremely poor judgment in terminating critical personnel without proper succession planning. I wasn't surprised by this news at all. Corporate executives who create expensive problems rarely survive long in their positions, especially when those problems could have been easily avoided with better decision-making. What happened to Derek Phillips? I asked curiously. He was demoted back to junior IT support. They hired an outside firm to manage cybersecurity, but the transition has been incredibly difficult and expensive. Several major clients have complained about ongoing service issues. That outcome was completely predictable. Institutional knowledge isn't easily replaced, and complex systems don't transfer seamlessly from one administrator to another without significant problems. TechWave would eventually stabilize their operations, but it would take considerable time and cost them significantly more than they had been paying me as a full-time employee. The irony was absolutely perfect. Victoria Nash had fired me specifically to save money and reduce operational costs. Instead, her decision ended up costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees, lost productivity, and client dissatisfaction. Her choice to treat me as disposable had ultimately made her the disposable one. I hung up the phone and returned to work on a comprehensive security proposal for a major new client. My business was growing steadily every month, and I was earning more money as an independent consultant than I had ever made as a traditional employee. More importantly, I was working with clients who genuinely understood the value of expertise and treated their technology professionals with respect and appreciation. Victoria Nash had taught me an invaluable lesson about corporate loyalty and professional relationships. She just hadn't intended for me to learn it at her expense and company's cost. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming too successful to care about the people who underestimated your worth and contributions. Within 18 months of my departure from TechWave, they had spent more on cybersecurity consulting than they would have paid me in 7 years of continued employment. Victoria eventually found work at a smaller regional firm where her cost-cutting strategies were less likely to backfire spectacularly and damage the company's reputation. Derek Phillips eventually left the technology industry altogether and became a sales representative for office equipment, a field where his MBA might actually be useful and relevant. As for me, I learned that sometimes being fired is exactly the push you need to realize your own true professional worth and market value. My consulting firm now employs 12 people and generates more revenue in a single quarter than I used to make in 2 full years at TechWave. I drive past their office building every day on my way to my downtown Austin headquarters, and I always smile when I see their logo. They're still in business, still struggling with IT issues, and still paying premium rates for consulting services they used to get for a fraction of the cost. The best part of this entire experience wasn't the money or the professional success. It was the complete transformation of how I viewed my own capabilities and market value. For 13 years, I had accepted whatever salary TechWave offered because I was comfortable and didn't want to rock the boat. I had undervalued my own expertise because I was loyal to a company that saw me as nothing more than an expense to be managed and eventually eliminated. Victoria's termination email, as brutal as it felt at the time, freed me from that limiting mindset and pushed me toward opportunities one never would have pursued otherwise. My wife Michelle often jokes that we should send Victoria a thank you card for firing me, because it led to the best financial and professional outcome our family had ever experienced. Our kids now have college funds fully funded. We've paid off our mortgage early, and I have the flexibility to attend every baseball game and school play I used to miss. The consulting business has given me everything that corporate employment never could: financial security, professional respect, and complete control over my own destiny. I still work hard, but now I work for clients who value what I bring to their organizations rather than seeing me as a cost center to be optimized away. Every month, new companies reach out asking for our services, and I get to choose which projects align with our capabilities and values. Looking back on that devastating Wednesday morning when Victoria's email destroyed what I thought was my career, I realized it was actually the beginning of something much better than I had ever imagined possible. The fear and anger I felt that day have been completely replaced by gratitude and confidence. I learned that being replaceable in a corporate structure doesn't mean you're not valuable in the marketplace. It just means you're working for people who don't recognize value when they see it. The most satisfying moment came 6 months ago when TechWave's biggest competitor offered to acquire my consulting firm for an amount that would have taken me 40 years to earn as their employee. I declined the offer because I'm having too much fun building something that belongs entirely to me and my team. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Victoria had treated me with respect, offered me a genuine partnership, or simply handled my departure professionally. Would I have stayed comfortable in that role for another decade, never realizing what I was capable of achieving independently? Probably. Her cold, corporate brutality was exactly what I needed to discover my own potential and courage. The lesson isn't really about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about recognizing when someone's treatment of you is actually a gift in disguise, even when it feels like the end of the world. Victoria Nash thought she was eliminating a costly employee, but she actually created her most expensive and successful competitor.